Recent news reports have exposed a certain scandal surrounding the Payroll Protection Program that the government rolled out now that capitalism has crashed here in the United States, at the same time that the failures to prepare for or to contain the coronavirus have engulfed our country. And the scandal concerns the fact that the very people who've been specializing over the last 30 years, if not much longer, in attacking the government as an economic burden, in attacking the government as being unnecessary, inadequate, inappropriate, all the rest, have now been exposed as having rushed to the PPP, this Payroll Protection Program, to get money. Everyone from the press secretary of President Trump on over to well-connected members of his family and of his political cronies. The one I liked most, which others have noticed as well, is the application by the Ayn Rand Institute, an institute developed around the personality and work of one of the loudest conservative writers ever to have set foot here in the United States, declaiming against the government as a burden. The Ayn Rand Institute got somewhere between $1 and $2 million out of this governmental program. I even liked especially the president's press secretary, who was quoted a year or two ago as having celebrated removing welfare recipients from getting government money on the grounds of the importance of weaning them away from governmental dependence. That's right, the way you wean them away is not to give them a job, not to give them a decent salary, not to put them in appropriate housing, and so on. No. Take away their benefits. The same press secretary, and she's one of many conservatives who declaim against the government, rush and fall all over themselves to get the government's money. But that's not the scandal part that concerns me. So I want to take the rest of the short time that I have just to go through a few of the ways in which government has always been central to, crucially supporting capitalism. Let's start easily. Money. Money makes the world go round, more in capitalism than in any other system. Capitalists early on, a century, 2, 3 ago, tried to let the money supply be controlled, run as a private enterprise. That didn't work out real well. Why? Because the people who got their hands on the control of money, mostly bankers, abused their control, as capitalists so often do, so badly, so monomaniacally, that in the end the society and even the bankers understood you couldn't leave it in private hands. And you know who got the job of controlling the money supply? The government. And everywhere they set up a central bank run by, the government. Like here in this country, the Federal Reserve. The government. In partnership with the privates, they didn't want to lose all their influence, of course, but they needed the government. And so the government controls the money supply. Here's another example. Banks were not the only ones who abused their private capitalist positions to make money at everybody else's expense. 3 other groups of industries did it so badly that the government came in and controls them, and has for decades. Insurance, the banks themselves, and utilities. I've talked about the banks, let's talk about insurance and utilities. The government regulates them. Government tells them how much they can charge, gives them a profit but limits it. You know why? Because they took advantage of their situation to overcharge everybody, other capitalists and us, the public, so grossly that we moved in to demand. The government controls all of that to a limited extent because private capitalism can't survive. It produces such contradictions, such anger, such bitterness, such struggle that the government has to be brought in because the system left to itself blows itself up. We're not done. The federal government in this country purchases $750 billion worth of military equipment. It gives those military producers huge contracts at prices virtually guaranteeing their profitability. What a wonderful thing for them. Of course, the government is crucial to an economy if it spends $750 billion just on the military. Here's another way the government supports capitalism. When people can't get work, we have millions of those. The government comes in and gives them various kinds of supports. If you didn't do that, those people would become desperate, and there are millions of them. The government does not hire them because that would be competitive with the private sector, which is a no-no. The government simply gives them an unemployment check. And you better, because if they have nothing to lose, then, well, who knows what might happen to capitalism. They've learned that lesson. But capitalism needs the support of those people, otherwise it becomes unlivable. Then a few others, just to round out the story. Public education. The government educates the vast majority of people. Not just the vast majority of K through 12, but the vast majority, roughly 75% of college students, are educated in, you got it, public colleges and universities run by the government. Then there's the roads and the minimum wages. It could go on and on. One last point. Some conservatives like to say at this point, well, yes, okay, but it would be better if it were done privately. No, it wouldn't, and that's why it isn't. Sure, private enterprises can pick at the edges. Let me give you an example. They can offer to run their own schools, the Betsy DeVos kind of craziness. But what they really mean is they want the government to pay. That's what the charter school movement among religious fundamentalists is all about. They want the government to pay, but they want to teach their particular religion to their particular audiences. The notion of capitalism without government is a utopian fantasy. The next time you hear the conservative notion about small government, turn it off, go for a walk, stop listening to nonsense. This is Richard Wolff from Democracy at Work.